starting to have the gothic, the thriller elements, murder and things, but also throw in a few books that I think are going to emotionally destroy me. Hello my loves, and thank you for joining me. It's Kirsten, and today we are doing my autumn TBR. So this is 10 books that I would like to read during the autumn month. We'll see how it goes. I have done one for spring and summer, and so far I haven't actually completed one. In summer I think it's 4 books left on that TBR that I haven't actually read. Well, we'll see. We're trying. I mean, we're improving. Spring I had 5, so you know, half, although since then I have read a couple more off of that TBRs, just I didn't read them in spring. Not the point. The point is we've got 10 books here to talk about that I would like to read in autumn, so let's just jump straight in. So one thing I like to do is have at least one non-fiction book, and this time I'm going with Mary's Monster. This is by Lita Judge, and this is how Mary Shelley created Frankenstein, and it is this beautiful illustrated book. I am absolutely in love with it. I'm not sure, I think some of this is poetry, but it's just so gorgeous. So I think it is poetry that looks at how Mary Shelley created Frankenstein, and it's just absolutely beautiful. So yeah, I'm very, very excited. On the back it says, they expected girls to be nice and obey the rules. They expected girls to be silent and swallow punishment and pain. She was cast out from society because she loved a married man. Her friends reviled her. Her father banished her from his house. But she did not hide. She was not silent. She fought against the cruelty of human nature by writing. Frankenstein is one of the greatest stories of all time, but the tale of Mary Shelley, the book's creator, is no less dramatic or compelling. In this dark and addictive illustrated biography, discover the extraordinary life of a literary genius who fought against society's expectations of women to create a monster. We know from that I am absolutely excited, and look at that. So stunning, absolutely stunning. So I'm very excited to read this one. It is something that I would like to read in October if I can. I think it's going to be a fantastic read. Such high expectations for this book, so that is the non-fiction pick for autumn. Then a reread, and this is a book I'm going to be reading towards the end of autumn, and that is Sarah J. Maas's House of Earth and Blood, the first book in the Crescent City series. This will be a reread, I think the 3rd time that I've read this, in preparation for the 3rd book that is coming out in January, I believe. So I want to read this at the very end of autumn in November, and then I will be reading House of Sky and Breath in December, and then picking up the 3rd book. I am very excited for this. I cannot wait to reread it. I really enjoyed this book way more than what I thought. We're following Bryce, and Bryce is a half human, half fae person. She's living in this city. It's an urban fantasy where there are so many different types of supernatural beings. You have werewolves, you have vampires, you have fae, you have merfolk, you have so many different ones. Even angels are in this. But something tragic happens at the start of the book, and it pulls Bryce into this investigation, and things start going really wrong, and you realise how corrupt everything actually is, with Bryce stuck in the middle of it all. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. I have to admit, I never thought I was going to pick it up, because when I first read a couple of pages of this when it was first published, I was really umming and ahhing about it, because there was so much swearing at the start of this book, and it's not something I love in books, and also urban fantasy isn't really my thing. I did end up getting it because, well, I'm Sarah J. Maas trash, and it's confirmed, because I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was so good, it was so entertaining, and I'm very excited for that 3rd book to come out. So rereading this in preparation for that 3rd book is going to be a grand time. And then the 8 remaining books are just books that I want to read during autumn for whatever reason. So let's just get straight into that. The first one is Interview with the Vampire, and this is by Anne Rice. This is a book that honestly I'm surprised I haven't read by now. Like, really surprised. I mean, it's a vampire classic at this point. You're gonna see a theme of some more spooky atmospheric books in here, because I do find with autumn it's the perfect time to start picking those up. Although, to be fair, I tend to like that any point during the year, but when someone says to me autumn books, this is the sort of thing that I think of. Very excited to give this one a try. We've had a few booktubers lately that have been reading it that have really loved it. So Bella from Throne of Pages and Emmy, both of them really enjoyed this book, and it's made me want to pick this one up, so I have to. This one says, In a darkened room, the boy sits, waiting for the story to begin. His companion is a young man, cloaked in shadow, his voice low and soft. Only the pure white of his collar is visible in the gloom. The story of this man's life is about to be told, a story of a vampire facing the dark stretch of eternity, cursed with an exquisite craving for human blood. Sounds really good. It is a full series, so yeah, I can't wait. I'm so excited to read this one. I think it's going to be fantastic. I would love to say to you, it's another one I'm going to pick up in October. My October reading list is huge. I feel like I should do that. Maybe that's a video idea of all the books that I want to read in October and the realities that I'm never going to. But they're books that I save up just to read in October, and it never happens as a result because there's so many. But it would be the perfect time to read it. Talking of another book that I've been saving for October, we have Our Hideous Progeny by C.E. McGill, and this is like a Frankenstein inspired, it's not so much retelling but inspired book with some gorgeous end pages and the foiling on the dust jacket. Stunning. So this is a new release. It only came out earlier this year, and we're following a descendant of Victor Frankenstein. So we're following Mary, and she is the great niece of Victor Frankenstein. Her great uncle disappeared in mysterious circumstances in the Arctic, and love that because that's an automatic link into the Frankenstein story. But we're set in 1850s London, with it being ablaze with scientific discoveries and stuff, and she really wants to make her name alongside her geologist husband, but their connections and wealth are limited, so it really limits what they're able to do. Then Mary discovers some old family papers that allude to the shocking truth of what happened with Victor Frankenstein, and so they set off on a journey. I think it's going to be a really good book. I'm really looking forward to reading this one. Again, it is one that I have been saving for October. I mean, it's got that gothic vibe to it. That's what I'm expecting, and a lot of the blurbs on the back talk about that. Like it says, darkly brilliant and sumptuously gothic. Wonderful debut involves a gripping gothic tale of grief and ambition. Everything talks about how gothic it is and the dark atmosphere to it, so I'm really excited to read this one because of that. It's a gorgeous cover, and I really want to read it. Like, I really like Frankenstein, and I love reading books that are inspired by our gothic classics, so yeah, I have to read this one. It's high up on the list. Would love to read it in autumn. Again, would love to read it specifically in October, but I don't think that's going to happen, so at some point in autumn would be really good. Continuing on with the darker gothic themes, we have The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. This is a book that I've had on my shelves for, coming up 2 years now. It's a book I desperately want to read though, because I have been told I'm going to love it, especially if I like Rebecca, which I did, if I like Jane Eyre, which I do, like, absolute favourite. I love both of those classic books, and so of course I have to read this one. I am so excited by it. I think it's going to be a great read. I'm not a fan of this edition. The writing is absolutely tiny, which is a bit of a shame. This came in a book collection box that I picked up for really cheap, and it had loads of different classic books in it. I mean, if I really like this, then I'll probably swap out the edition for like the English library editions or something, but I want to give it a try before I do that. Not the point. Point is, I have been told I'm going to love this one, that it is a gothic story, which sounds right up my street, and on the back it says, on a moonlit road in Hampstead, Walter Hartwright is accosted by a stranger dressed from head to toe in white. She asks the way to London, and no sooner has Walter directed her than he is overtaken by a carriage in pursuit of the mysterious woman who has evidently escaped from an asylum. From this single incident, Walter unwinds a thrilling story of abduction, madness, false identity, and shameful family secret. It sounds so good. It sounds like all the things I need to read. I've got to stop putting this off. Like, I have been procrastinating it, and I don't know why. I really need to stop putting this off and read it. This is exactly the sort of gothic classic that I adore, so we have to read this. I'm actually thinking more November time for this, but regardless, I'm going to read it. This is, out of everything, I have to read this one. This is one that if I don't pick up, I'll be so disappointed in myself because I keep putting it off for no reason, knowing I'm going to love it. Although that does happen a lot. For some reason, if I know I'm going to adore a book, I will put it off. What if I don't enjoy it as much? What if it doesn't live up to the hype that I have got? It's a silly thing, but it is such a big thing for me, and I think my expectations are so high, I'm scared it won't hold up to it, but I have been told I will love it, so we've got to do it this autumn. Okay, continuing on with a classic, this is actually on my September TBR, War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. I wanted to put it on this autumn TBR as well, just to remind myself to actually pick it up. Like, this isn't technically part of my September TBR, but I did mention it as one that I want to start reading. I want to give myself 2 months to get through this book. It is 1200 pages and I'm intimidated by this. I read Anna Karenina and I did really like it, but there were parts of that book that I really struggled to get through. I'm hoping now, because I know Leo Tolstoy's writing, that I will find this easier to read. I want to annotate it. This is a book that I really want to read. Like, it's a book that intimidates me and I just want to read it and prove to myself we've read it, we've done it. And it is a book that has had nothing but really high reviews for it. So I'm gonna do it. I'm actually going to do this. I am very nervous, but very excited. I don't know if 2 months is long enough, but I would like to do it in 2 months. So we're gonna see. I might separate it into sections of what I need to read and go from there. But yeah, this is one that I wanted to put on my autumn TBR to again motivate me to actually get this one read this year. It's something that I have a goal to read this by the end of the year, and I would love it if I could have it actually done by November. Putting it on here to reinforce the fact that I need to read this book. Yes, it's scary, but I think it's going to be beautiful. So we are following a whole host of different characters. There's going to be loads and loads of different characters in this book, and we're looking at war and peace and how they interact with one another. We're seeing war and actual conflict go on. We're also seeing times of peace and how people deal with that, and I do believe it's kind of showing how everything's a bit of like a performance and like a show, so there's no real meaning to things. I believe. I could be completely wrong, but I'm very much looking forward to reading it and annotating this and getting through it, and I have heard that it really gets people feeling all the emotions, so we're going to do it. Going to do it this autumn. Okay, the last few. So we have one fantasy book that I really want to read, and that is The Liar's Knot by M.A. Carrick. I have the first book that I'm reading in September, and the goal is to actually finish this series by the end of the year. So in autumn, I need to get this one read. This is the second book in the series. Really looking forward to rereading and continuing on from. We're following a con artist. She decides to worm her way into elite society, conning people so that she can support herself and her sister, who have been living out on the streets. There is also vigilante things going on, there's tarot magic involved, there is a lot going on. It's a really lovely Venetian setting. It's stunning. I really enjoyed the first book, so I'm looking forward to doing my reread and then reading the second book. And again, putting it on this autumn TBR just kind of is that extra prompt that I need to actually remember to continue on and finish this series this year. It's something I need to do. I have the third book that recently came out, so there's no excuse for me not to finish it this year, so I need to actually do it. I am amazing at starting loads of series and not so good at finishing them, and that's something that I want to do, is instead of starting and buying loads of new books for new series, actually continuing some of the ones that I've started and finishing them off. That's the goal with this one. We then have historical fiction, and that's The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. This is a book I keep mentioning lately. It's also been on my Reading Around the World challenge, and lots of you tell me it's one of your favourite books. It is another book that I think I'm going to love, and as a result I keep putting off. It sounds like it's going to be such a good time. Oh, didn't even know it had things like that in it. Oh, that makes me even more excited to read it. I know that's a weird thing, but it does. Also, the actual formatting of this book is really readable. I like that. I think this is going to be fantastic. I also think it's going to be a very emotional read, and as a result I keep putting it off. Historical fiction is a genre that I don't read a lot of, but when I do read it, I devour it. I love it. I think it's probably one of the best written genres outside of classics. Like, I think there is just something about that writing that I find so compelling and so beautiful in historical fiction books. But for some reason I don't read them a lot. I really have to be in the mood for it. Again, it's that expectation of I have such high expectations, what if it doesn't live up to it? In this one, we are following Death. We're in 1939, Nazi Germany. The country is holding its breath. Death has never been busier. Lizelle, a 9-year-old girl, is living with a foster family on Himmel Street. Her parents have been taken away to a concentration camp. Lizelle steals books. This is her story and the story of the inhabitants of her street when the bombs begin to fall. It is a story narrated by Death. I think this is going to be fantastic. Like, I'm really, really looking forward to it. I'm also just terrified because I think it's also going to rip my heart to pieces. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm looking forward to it. I haven't seen the film either, but to be honest, I'd rather read the book anyway. So I think, yeah. It's going to be a good time. You've all told me how amazing it is, so I need to read it. So finally doing it. I also feel like autumn is a really good time for historical fiction, pairing historical fiction and gothic literature. Two things that I think just work for autumn time. And then we have a dark academia book, which is The Things We Do to Our Friends by Heather Darwin. I have quite a few dark academia books I would like to read, but I decided to pull this one off my shelves and I think it's going to be a good time. So this one says, how much is an extraordinary life worth if others have to pay? Claire arrives at the University of Edinburgh in secret. Oh, with a secret. This is her chance for a blank slate to find the right people and reinvent herself, and then she meets Tabitha. Tabitha is a charismatic, beautiful, and intimidatingly wealthy. Soon Claire is sucked into her enigmatic circle of friends and their dizzying world of champagne on rooftops and summers in France. Her new life has begun. Then Tabitha reveals the little project they're working on, a project that needs Claire's help. It's reckless, possibly perilous, and might finally allow Claire to become who she's always meant to be. And because it's talking about summers in France, I'm feeling like this is a good one to read at the beginning of autumn. So actually it would have been really good to put on my September TBR. Never mind, maybe we'll fit it in. But I feel like it's going to have that like sticky heat, which you can sometimes get towards the very end of summer going into autumn. Sometimes. I live in England, so it doesn't always work out that way. But I feel like this will definitely be one that I'm going to, one, really enjoy. I like a good dark academia book, and two, work really well for the beginning of autumn. So we'll see how that works. But I do love this cover. I think it's absolutely stunning. So yeah, we will see how that goes. And again, dark academia is a genre that I like to read all year round. I haven't actually read much in the last couple months, but I do think works perfectly for autumn and winter. So yeah, hopefully we'll be getting back into my dark academia book. And then the final book that I want to read for autumn is Young Mongo by Douglas Stewart. And this is another book that I think is just going to be absolutely phenomenal. This one is following two different main characters. One of them is a Protestant and one of them is Catholic, and they end up having a relationship. It's dealing with that, I believe. Let me actually just re-go over the synopsis. So yeah, so we do have Protestant Mongo and Catholic James live in a hyper-masculine world. They are caught between two of Glasgow's housing estates where the young working class men divide themselves along sectarian lines and fight territorial battles for the sake of reputation. They should be sworn enemies if they're to be seen as men at all, and yet they become best friends as they find a sanctuary in the Ducat that James has built for his prize racing birds. As they begin to fall in love, they dream of escaping the grey city, and Mongo must work hard to hide his true self from all those around him, especially from his elder brother Hamish, a local gang leader with a brutal reputation to uphold. I think this is going to be so heartbreaking and so beautiful. I have such high expectations. I actually got this in a free library and I'm very excited to read it. I think it's going to be stunning. So yeah, I really am looking forward to this one as well. I've tried doing quite a mixture of genres for this autumn TBR and I feel like I've succeeded. I've got some of the more gothic spooky books, a mixture of classic and non-classics. I've got some fantasy, historical fiction, and just books that are going to wreck me. That's what it's been, and I'm looking forward to all of them. So please let me know what ones you've read, if you have read any of them, if you're interested in any of them. What ones should I prioritise out of these 10? Let me know all of that below. And yeah, what sort of books do you think work for autumn? For me, autumn is more chunky books and gothic. I like starting to have the gothic, the thriller elements, murder and things, but also throw in a few books that I think are going to emotionally destroy me. And I think it's going to be a good time. But there we are. Those are the 10 books that I want to read in autumn, and we'll see how well I actually get done. I have high hopes for all of these. I don't think I'll get all 10 done, as much as I would love to. I have to be realistic, but I definitely think there are at least, 8. I would like to aim for 8. Because I'm so excited for all of them. Yeah, let's aim for 8. Let's see if we can do 8 out of the 10. That would be so good. I would really like to do that. Pretty sure I've said that before as well, whenever I do these videos. But anyway, I'm now rambling. So if you've made it this far, I think we should put an autumn leaf in the comments below. And thank you so much for watching. So if you have enjoyed this video, please do give it that thumbs up, subscribe and comment. Those 3 things really help this channel grow. My social media links and anyone I've mentioned will be linked below, and I will of course catch you in the very next video.